Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Now, today is a very special episode, and the reason that it is because it is episode 100. I can't believe that we have got here to the team. Travis, thank you so much for making us look great every week. And today, I thought we'd do something a little bit more different than the typical podcast real estate stuff that we usually post. The reason I have today's guest on is in January of 2023, when I was thinking about doing this podcast, I mentioned it to a few people, and there was only 2 people at the very start that supported me and that, encouraged me to do this podcast. One was my lovely partner. The other one was the man sitting next to me today, Mr. Kido.
How you going, Davey?
Good, bro. I appreciate you coming on. So look, today, obviously, you're not in the real estate world, but what world that you are in that is really interesting to me is you're in marketing, you're in branding, you're big on socials, you have that mindset. You and I have been friends for years now. We talk almost every single week. Oh, no, sorry. We talk every week. We talk almost every single day.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what I like to do today is reflect back on that conversation, some of the conversations that we've sort of had since. And I think every time you and I chat, there's always takeaways, there's always value, there's always really good insights and sharings and stuff. So I want to dig a little bit into not only your story, which is super interesting, but also want to dig into a bit around that mindset, that learning, business, those kind of golden nuggets that we've been talking to the last 4, 5, 6 years, however long it's been. Yes, I got to ask you though, do you remember how we came in contact?
Honestly, my best guess is probably me mucking around, making some short form TikToks and me sharing that early, I think it would have been like late 2019 when I decided to start sharing my music on TikTok. And so I remember at the time, the consensus on what TikTok was, surely like people were thinking it was just teenage girls dancing. It was like silly little videos, a little bit of fun, but I recognized that there was an opportunity there. And so what I did was I set up my little iPhone 7 at the time. And
we're going back, bro.
Yeah, I set up my iPhone 7. I mean, I don't know what it was up to at that point, but yeah. I knew my phone was old too. But I realized that, okay, here's this opportunity that's here, which is, and this is pre-COVID, so this is pre-2020. Everybody thinks TikTok is this one thing, and I could see that, okay, no, this is an opportunity here. And so I started posting a few little silly TikToks, obviously promoting my music and basically introducing myself to the world, essentially. And then I remember us just, I guess, talking and connecting through Instagram. And I don't know, I think the biggest theme between you and I that we've always shared is just this element of trusting the process of changing nothing and continuing with immaculate consistency.
That is the quote
and
of
so,
the decade.
And so even though it has been years that we've been talking, I feel like we've always been on the same energy. We've always been on the same frequency. We've always been able to communicate in a way that we already both get it, so we don't have to explain it to each other. And I think that's the beauty of being able to, one, take risks under your own name, being able to take risks with your own work and really put yourself out there, but also being able to arrange your ideas and express them in a way that allows other people to connect with them. And so to answer your question in a long form, I guess it was from TikTok, but I think we've just grown and we've always been on the same philosophy rather than the similar proximity. The proximity never mattered. We were always...
Yeah, you're in Brizzy, I'm in...
Correct.
I'm in New South Wales, I'm in Sydney, so...
Correct. So we're always able to exchange those ideas, and then look at where we are today. Like, I just want to start this off by saying I'm proud of you, bro. Like, 100 episodes in, as I said earlier, like, this is where the journey begins.
Yeah, your philosophy and, like, what you said in these early days when I started this pod was you're like, do nothing but put the reps in, put your head down, to 100 reps of the podcast, and then after that, put your head up, worry about marketing it, worry about numbers, worry about like where you're at on the journey. You're like, don't look at the numbers, don't get disheartened, because you're right. For any like business or any social media, especially with the podcast when you start it, no one listens at the start. So it's like, it was like, I felt personally when I was like, fuck, I either quit or I just keep going. Like it's a rep game. Every episode, every guest, we try to get a little bit better. We try to tweak things. We're constantly testing on socials. We launched in, I think it was March. We launched in March 2023. By September, we brought Trav on board, videographer. And at that stage, I was probably at 800 followers on Instagram. So I think when we were talking, you were like, focus on a few channels and then you'll organically grow out from there. So I said, look, LinkedIn, Instagram, we're on about 800 followers. We brought Trav on board. We started a video. Zach Rabin, shout out to him if he ever sees this video. He was the first video guest that we had on. And he works for a very prominent real estate agent in Sydney's eastern suburbs. Reached out to him, sold him on the idea, and then from there, by January 2024, we're on 1,000. By March 2024, we had hit 15,000, and snowball on from there, man. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah. Proud of you, bro. I guess my question for you is...
Yeah, tell me.
When you're sitting there with 800 followers, and you said you've been doing it for months at that point.
Yeah.
So you've been putting in reps for months, and you're still sitting at 800 followers.
That's...
what... Yeah, how many months is that?
6 months in.
So 6 months in, you're sitting on 800 followers. You're like, well, there's something here, but like it's not showing publicly to other people yet. But I know something's here. What is going through your mind at that point? Are you thinking, okay, I know I need to jump on video. Let's do this quick little pivot. Like, can you speak me through kind of your thinking around that chapter? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They're putting the work in. They get to that point, but it's not quite working yet. But the truth is that that quick little pivot you made,
game changer.
Correct.
I think that there's two answers to that. One is and I've seen it as well, growing my personal and growing everything property to 25,000. My personal brand, I can show you now.
Fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. But look at this. I won't even on air. How many views am I reaching in the last 30 days?
1.6 million views in the last 30 days.
Yeah, exactly.
1.6 on his personal. Let's go.
So, like, not a flex, but what I've kind of worked out is you need to post video. No Instagram account that I know on earth, unless it's maybe owned by a celebrity or anything like that, is going to grow purely based on text posts. Text posts are great, but when you look at the analytics, that's not going out to people that don't follow you too much. Yeah. Look at the analytics, go back into all your posts as well and have a look. The video is kind of what goes out, gets attention, people view it. If it's a really good video, then they'll come to your page and they'll check it out. That's when you need text posts. Yeah. So I always knew that I needed to do video for the podcast. I saw that in the first 6 months. The quality of the content and the static posts that I was putting out were great. There was so many insights in there, but it just wasn't reaching the audience. Yeah. And so Travis, our videographer, he'll come on for an app coming up, but Travis videoed my brother's wedding like 5-6 years ago, something like that. We kept in touch. Travis did good work. Yeah. Young lad like us, goes hard, has an incredible story that we've said we will bookmark for a day on the podcast. And I said, like, hey, man, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm building. We want to be number one. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I know that we'll get there. And I know we just need to post. You need to post consistently, good quality. You need to have videos in there as well.
Can I interrupt there? Yeah. So this is the one thing that, you and I have connected on from the beginning, which is this idea of when you start something, you decide that you're going to be the best at it. There's none of this, okay, I'm going to reach for top 10 or anything. It was like from the beginning, you were like, if I'm going to try this, I'm going to do it the right way. Where do you think that came from for you? How did you I guess.
Well, man, here's the thing. Like, what's the point of doing it if you're gonna half-ass it? I think when you have creative license to do your own, say it's business, say it's page, Instagram, anything like that, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to run that past the board. You don't have a boss or anything like that. So I was like, I know background in graphic design and stuff like that, as well as architecture. I was like, I know how to design stuff. I know how to make it really look good. And the whole reason I started this pod was because there's only two people putting out podcasts and content. It was like your property spruikers who were selling people like house and land packages, apartments, that kind of shit. Or then there was the buyer's agent. Yeah. And then the buyer's agent's pods, some of them were great, some of them were rubbish, but the great ones would tell you like a little bit about what you know, but then like cut it short, and they wouldn't tell you everything.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't tell you everything that you need to go, because that would then filter into their business channel where you would inquire, become a client. They can sign you up for 20 grand. So I thought, why don't I just do a podcast? Why don't I just do my rules? I can post whatever I want, and I can tell you all the shit that you need to know. There's some of the stuff as well that I've been curious about, like, you know, the stuff where I'm like, I don't know the answer to this, but I know in my network who I need to reach out to or who I need to talk to who does. So it's like, to answer your question, it's like, one, I need to give it a crack. Two, it is your resume. It is your, you know, what's Davey doing? He's doing the property thing. It's like your visual resume. It's like your personal brand.
Yeah.
So I'd be crazy not to give that 100%, because otherwise it's a reflection of me. No one else is posting. No one else is responsible for it. And so many people are like that, is they have an idea, they start it, and then, you know, a few months later or a month in, like they quit, they stop posting.
Well, sometimes they just don't even start at the begin with.
Don't even start to begin with. I'll give you the start. I went back through our chat before we started the pod, and I was like, you know what? Let me find you this stat for podcasts. You sent this to me, by the way. So when I first started, you sent this to me, and this stat is a little bit old, but I'm sure you can see sort of where it lies. It's the general idea. There's 2 million podcasts. If you publish 21 episodes, you will be in the top 1% of podcasts globally. How? Here's the stats. 90% of podcasts don't get past 3 episodes. So 1.8 million people quit. Of the 200,000 that are left, 90% of those quit after 20 episodes. So that's another 180,000 podcasts gone. To be in the top 1% of podcasts in the world, you only need to publish 21 episodes of your podcast. The competition is not 2 million, it's 20,000 podcasters who didn't quit. So it's like, for me, I like when you're sending that, I'm like, all right, keep going, don't change, like keep tweaking and stuff like that, but do it for at least 100 episodes and then assess it and think, am I going to play on? Am I going to keep going? Or, hey, podcast isn't for me.
Are you going to play on, Davey?
We are playing on, bro.
Can we have...
The goal is 1,000 episodes.
Yes, let's go.
I'd like to get to Joe Rogan level. So I think this year what I want to do is I want to up the frequency a little bit more than one podcast. Volume, so there's a few little ideas that we're going to play with and post up. So if you're listening and you're an avid listener, you get an understanding of what we think and what extra value we can bring week to week.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's.
Can you speak on how your process has changed from 0 to 100? So there obviously was that pivot to video.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what episode that was?
Roughly 6 months in.
Yeah.
24.
So those first 24 are all audio.
Yep.
Are you doing any written at that point, or is just like the Instagram posts with graphics and quotes?
Instagram posts, graphics, quotes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so now we do a long form podcast, as people know. We can chop that into anywhere between 3 to 6 months, 3 to 6 short reels.
Yes.
3 to 6 short reels. We'll do some text-based posts. There's the photo with the guest, and it sort of trickles down to a whole web of content, because obviously content is key. So from that one episode, we can break that down into multiple different elements and different crafts for different platforms in content.
Yes,
good,
fantastic.
I feel like you're starting to interview me.
Yes, sir. Listen, this is episode 100. It's not just about me, sir. So
that's good. Okay.
I'm into it.
Tell me, what I think is so cool and is interesting about you is, one, what you do for a job and how you make money.
Yes.
Talk to me.
Okay, so essentially right now I deal with pre-owned clothing and vintage clothing. The way I started with that was really just starting with what I had, which was going to the op shops. And so I used to go to the op shops. I used to, look at something based on taste and be like, oh, well, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if this will sell on the internet. But my goal was never to turn that into a business. So it started with me just buying way too much stuff from the op shop and me being, well, I can't keep all of this in my wardrobe. I've got too much. And the thing that, the biggest game changer for me was joining Facebook and trying to sell stuff on a Facebook page called Shop and Swap. And so from Shop and Swap, I was able to sell a few items here. And it wasn't till later that I then started selling on eBay. To make a long story short, I started at a 2-bedroom apartment with my mum, who I'm an only child. She raised me on her own. I've seen her grind. I've seen her put in work to raise me. And I think that struggle for me motivated me to make things happen early on. So even before I was, doing the hustle or going to the op shops, like my first business was I was doing photography and media. So I was 15 years old. I was thinking, how do I go to the popular kid parties, right? How do I get in with the in crowd, right? Then I realized, I'm like, you know what? Here I can actually offer value to them. How can I do that? Let me do some photography. Let me basically focus on making other people look good. And turns out if you do that in the media business, it doesn't matter whether you're interviewing people, doesn't matter whether you're taking photos, doing wedding videos. If you base your entire goal around making other people look good, making other people feel important, it is very, very hard to go wrong, because it's not about you at that point. It's about the other people. And when we're in business and we can make it about the other people, you're off to the races. Like, it's very, very hard to be broke when your entire business is based on what other people want.
Yeah, like everyone's in this for themselves, right? Like
Correct.
everyone thinks about what they want, what's in it for them.
Correct.
And I feel like that's the same with the podcast. Is like when we brought Trav on and we're like, we'd want to do video. I was like, I don't want to do iPhones. I can set that up. I can do iPhones, but let's get the best podcast content, property podcast content in Australia.
Yes.
Let's get the video crispy as. Let's get it looking great. So when someone wants to go on and they check out the page, they go, holy shit, this is sick.
Standard.
I want to share this to my story. I want to share it to their grid. And then you go from like having to fight for guests to having to like, and what I do as well is turn away like so many people. Now it's like people that are reaching out that I'm like, well, it looks great for you and your business, but what value can you
Bring
provide for our audience?
Correct.
And sometimes the balance doesn't work out, and guest selection is a fucking whole other thing. But so you got that sort of work ethic, that drive, that hunger from your mum.
Yep.
And then
Shout out to mum.
Shout out
Love
to mum.
you.
Shout out to mum and
Love
Kido.
you. She's gonna watch this later.
Yeah, of
hey
course
mum,
she
what do you
is.
think?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
The number one fan.
Yeah.
It's funny that you started in media, because it's like we came full circle and we're back here now.
Yes, sir.
What next?
What next for me? I think so the other side of the coin is music. So I've been making music. That's how you found me. That's how we connected to begin with. So for a long time, I was always thinking, do I all in on this vintage business? Do I all in on music? And I had to give myself permission to do both, because I have always been both my entire life. Like I'm half Australian, half Japanese, right? And then when it comes to even my work day, is like I love to go work on my business and then go work on music afterwards. It's like, as business people, we do need a creative outlet. We do need spaces where we can express freely, because there is an element of, you can't be professional all the time. Sometimes you need to be able to relax and be you know what I mean? And so for a long time, I went through this thing of like, do I drop the business and then keep working on music? Do I work on, you know what I mean? I went back and forth with that. And the funniest thing is now this year, 2025, is I've started posting these silly little videos of my workday, putting my music underneath it, and seeing those videos do really, really well. So I've not only been able to keep working on music and just stick with it, but also find one of the most unique ways to promote that music.
And when you're selling, like what is cool is like, I don't know how much you can tell, but talk to me about the numbers on like how much you're selling, like revenue. It's obvious, like you do it full time now, man. So, it's obviously got to bring in a paycheck, right?
Yes, sir. So
I don't think people know that this sort of level exists. They just think they slap out, like some people slap up a few like used clothes and stuff, but like you are importing clothes, you're buying them in like shipping containers worth of sizes. Like you have a production, like you have a chain, like a factory chain of like stations and setting and all that kind of shit. Tell me about the numbers and like what you can share.
I guess right now, just to give you an idea of, the biggest thing when people ask about revenue and that sort of thing is like, well, do I really want people pocket checking me? You know what I mean? It's just like, just know that right now as a solopreneur, I'm serving 5,000 customers a year by myself. And if anybody understands how overhead works in business, is like you've got your warehousing, you've got your employees, you've got your payroll. For me, I pay $250 a month for my shed right now because I operate it from home in the home shed, right? I've got 8,000 active listings right now, and I'm rotating that every year.
Yeah.
So to answer your question is kind of like what I've learned to do is learn to leverage as much as possible and just get better at what I do. So it went from starting out those op shops and kind of like fumbling through my entire process to now is like I can go there, I can knock out a 4-hour work day, be done by 9, 10 a.m. and then spend the rest of the day working on music. And that's only through dialing down the systems, dialing in on the certain things like, okay, where am I losing minutes? Where am I losing seconds? Where am I wasting time on the things that don't matter?
Yeah.
And I think this might be something that I have a question for most business owners, which they can take away from this, which is where is one area in your business that you're currently wasting time on that you do not need to be? Because by continually answering that question for myself, I have exponentially increased the growth of my business and been able to scale it to the point where by myself, I can serve 5,000 customers a year and I haven't even reached the ceiling yet. I now know I'm like, oh, what if tomorrow instead of working 4 hours, I work 5 hours? What does that look like compounded over 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
I spoke about this off air, but the phone lanyard, tell me about it.
So I worked at, and this isn't actually my idea. This came from a guy named Tekken Sports. So Tekken Sports, one of the biggest American eBay sellers, and I need to shout him out because massive influence on me, right? So even though he is running or was running his eBay business in America, I found that his podcast was very beneficial to me, and also just his ideas and his approach to business in itself. This idea that you have these creative constraints and you can maximize those opportunities by just using what you have and finding what works and not needing to change everything, not needing to make everything quicker, but instead you get better. Because that's what I think a lot of people get wrong in business, doesn't matter what industry it is the fact that a lot of people are maximizing for getting things done quicker, getting things done faster. And I get it, time is money. But if you just slow down, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And so over time, if we just focus on doing things better, getting better as operators, you're going to find that, wow, there's these levels that I haven't unlocked yet. And because I didn't rush, I can now see that. And the best thing is if you go slower, which not a lot of people want to do, but if you go slower, you can make a mistake once at a time. You go too fast, this is how you get injured. In sports or whatever, you're not going out there and starting with a 300 kilo bench press, right? Yeah. You're working your way up to it. So this method of growing, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, enables you to make mistakes one at a time, correct. Make another mistake one at a time, correct. And then, over time.
Refine.
Correct.
Reconfigure. Go
Correct.
again.
Correct.
It's interesting you say that because one of the reasons why we started Everything Property Media was because, and it comes down to like you're saying, dollar productive items. So for people in property, everyone wants video content, right? We've sort of come up with a system where we're able to pump a lot of that out, like really cost and time effectively. But what I saw was that people were trying to create video content, obviously for their business. We know that's good. We know they need it. But by the time you script, you set up the camera, you record, take a couple of takes, you edit it, you finish it and post it and all that kind of stuff, you could have wasted 3 hours of a day. Now, if your work day is only 8 hours, you're like, that's per day, per video is crazy. And you got to think I was like, well, if you're, a buyer's agent or someone that can be bringing in a service, like imagine what 3 hours can do if you're cold calling, if you're, on the phone to people, if you're running ads, if you're door knocking, if you're talking to agents or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's so much more dollar productive. Whereas we sit down with people, we have one filming day every 3 months, and we give you enough for anywhere between 2 to 4 videos a week, done, set, edited, ready to go. So all you need to do is go on, post. So it's like dollar productive. It's a good takeaway. It's like dollar productive for your business. What are you wasting time doing versus where do you make the most money in your business? And then if you can have a look at, what's it going to cost, I feel, to outsource that versus what money, because obviously you outsource it to us or you outsource it to anyone, it's going to cost money. But if that then frees up time for you to be able to go, oh, I can bring in you 2x, 3x, or 10 grand a day, 5 grand a day, whatever it may be. It's like you can pretty much pay for yourself really quickly. Even like a mortgage broker or anyone like that, you can pay for yourself pretty quickly. You know, I showed you before, 1.6 million leads, 1.6 million views a month. Like if I was selling something, or if I was a mortgage broker or something like that, like think of the leads that would be coming in. It's all videos, it's all systems.
And the beautiful thing about that is this is something that you guys are doing every day.
Yeah.
Some people that want to block out a 3-hour filming session, are you doing that every day, or are you balancing the other sides of your business as well? So having you guys come in and focus on that for them, you know, you're selling time at a discount for them.
Yeah, basically come in 4 days. Usually it's 4 hours of filming. We found 4 hours of filming, 3 months worth. You got to do that four times a year. Set and forget. What are some other ways that you have like automated or streamlined your business in terms of time savings and that kind of stuff?
I would just say simplification. And there's a book on this that I've recently read, which kind of was like breaking down all my ideas, but then telling them back to me as well. Yeah. So there's this book called Company of One by a guy named Paul Jarvis, I think. Someone correct me with that. Yeah. Company of One is the name. And in that book, he just speaks about like this old Japanese onsen. And this Japanese onsen has been around for hundreds of years. And the idea with this onsen was that they always had this opportunity to expand because they've been around for so long, they've done so well, right? But what they did instead of expanding was just focusing on improving their own offering. So they had royalty, they had celebrities, and they're still around. And so this idea of just simplifying to what we do best, which for me, just pre-owned clothing, I focus on men's clothing, right? Pre-owned men's clothing. If a bloke wants to come through and buy, 10, 15 items, update his entire wardrobe, he wants to do, a bulk deal, I'm more than happy. He knows he's dealing directly with me. We're off to the races. It's a one-to-one relationship. There's none of this, back and forth with it. Because the ultimate thing I think moving forward and as we move into, the age of AI is the importance of personal brand, is the importance of people knowing who you are, knowing how you think, because that way of thinking, that philosophy, your values is what's going to separate you in the marketplace. When everybody is offering the same information up, when everybody has realized that educating people is a fantastic way to put your name out, what it's going to come down to is who do I like the most? Who do I trust the most? And so I think that's been a huge element in my business, which is creating that trust with my customers, being able to serve that many customers and provide the same experience every time has been very important to me. And
how are you building that trust?
So just being fast, be fast. When somebody buys something from me, I'm onto it right away. And because I am a one-man operation, I'm able to put that personal touch on things. They know that they're not building. They know they're not working with a bigger company. They know they're dealing with one guy. Yep. And they know I'm going to take care of them.
What else are you seeing? What you've been cool and what's been really interesting is we often chat about AI and automation and those kinds of things, and we bounce some ideas and you show me a few things and we go back and forth. What are you seeing? Like, what's your general thoughts on AI and like its position in business and like all that kind of stuff?
So for me, I'm running my business by myself as a solopreneur. So my entire foundation is built on how do I leverage tools to maximize my output. AI, especially agentic...
How do I leverage tools to maximize my output?
Correct.
Love it. Yep.
Because if we look at like a standard company, what you're doing is you're leveraging other people's time, aka your employees. The thing is agentic AI is coming, which is basically just like agents. Think of it as virtual employees. With businesses such as e-commerce, imagine having 1,000 employees that are all software agents where you can give them a to-do list and they get those done in a fraction of the time. That is where we're headed. And so you already see AI being implemented on the platforms that we're using every day. You look at a Netflix. How do you suggest what watch next? That's AI giving you suggestions based on your archetype, based on your previous watching habits. We go on to Spotify. Spotify also, okay, what is my Discover Weekly? What are the tracks that I'm finding? Okay, this is all AI. These are all algorithms that are created to study your listening habits,
Yeah.
and then feed you more content to stay on those platforms.
Yeah, okay. So what would be the best way for me to lean in? Is it just a testing thing? Is it like how do you stay on the front foot with this stuff?
The number one question that I think I would love people to take away from this podcast, from you and I, is asking the question of how does AI affect my industry right now? And how can I be the most educated, the most curious? Because that's what it comes down to. How can we become more curious about these new things that are coming? Because, as I said, to take it back full circle to the start of our conversation, I was on TikTok 2019. I was not early, but I was early enough that I could catch that first mover's advantage. So right now, especially with AI, like, let's take it down to content. These AI editors are getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah,
I think
a bit to go, but yeah,
they've definitely got a bit to go. But I think that even being curious and being aware of that, and maybe checking in periodically, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, when you're the first person to use those tools and you have that amazing amount of tool leverage, like, your productivity goes up crazy. And so if we think about, let's take it back to some early examples. If you were early on Instagram, let's say you joined Instagram day one, and you consistently posted every day since Instagram came out, how do you think you'd be going right now?
You'd be in the millions. You'd be
Correct.
killing it. Yeah.
So the question is how do we become more curious about AI? The question you need to answer for yourself is, how does AI affect the current industry that I'm in right now?
Mm-hmm.
And what will that do to
how
the
does it
industry
now,
itself?
or how can it?
Both.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Both. Because I think also a lot of people are unaware that a lot of these industries already have artificial intelligence baked in, whether it's from your LinkedIn social media algorithms, whether it's some of these tools, whether it's suggestive features. It's everywhere. It's everywhere already.
It is, and for real estate and property, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yes.
As you said, the video stuff, there is a little bit started. Agreed in terms of, like, I don't think the quality's there, but it's definitely something that we're looking at and monitoring. It's just like testing it too.
Correct.
You like dive
just being
in,
curious.
be
just
curious.
being curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
because if you were curious about social media early, you're probably doing okay now.
Look where you would have ended up.
Correct.
Where does your idea, or where do you sort of your mindset, where does that come from? Is that from, growing up being raised by a single mom, or like, man, I feel like we're on the same page, so I'd like to know where you're getting that from.
Yeah.
Like, is that built or learned?
To give you kind of a little bit of background.
Yeah.
My mother used to always tell me growing up, like, believe in yourself, you can do it, you're special, you can do all these things, right? And I'm sure a lot of mothers said that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
The difference is that, like, when she said it to me, I knew she wasn't lying. I 100% believed her. And so this was a woman that didn't just show me through her words. She was, to dive deeper into it, like, she's bilingual. She can speak Japanese and English. First time she went to Japan, she was 18 years old and was basically thrown into the deep end. 3 months there, boom, she could speak Japanese. She explained it as, like, one day her ears just opened and she could understand. So this is before social media. Like, you don't have Duolingo, you don't have ChatGPT. You're literally, it's just full immersion. That's how she learnt. So she's 18 years old doing that, right? From Australia, goes to Japan. She comes back. Among other things, she got a truck driver's license. She can drive like a heavy rigid. She also knows, recently she got a forklift license, so she knows how to excavator license. So she knows how to, like, dig up the ground and stuff. Went through the training, everything. Add that to the fact that, I watched her work at KFC. I watched her work at Coles, raising me to put me through school, and the whole time she was studying her law degree. And so her law degree ended up taking her something like 10 years because she had to defer it in the middle to raise me. But she used to take me to the library and be like, I'm going to sit here and study. I want you to just go off and be curious. And, like, I don't know whether she vocalized that, but she was like, listen, go entertain yourself, go learn. The library is a great place to be, right? And so you have that mentality. You get seen what's possible. I saw my mom chase the dream and get there. She graduated. She got a law degree. You know what I mean? So I've seen a lot of my energy, a lot of my mentality, a lot of my values come from my mother. And not only just from what she said, but what she did and who she is as a person. And so I feel like a lot of what I'm saying, a lot of what people hear from me, and a lot of what people connect to in the music is just my mother's message. I'm the speaker, you know? It's my mom's message coming out through me. And like, that's the biggest thing with this podcast with you is like, when you first started out, I was just like, I love this idea. I can see the vision. I can see that there's an opportunity here to be the best because there's no competition. Even if there is competition now, it's like, well, listen, you got so much momentum. You got the connections, you got the branding. And that's the thing that really impressed me with you when you first started was because you had that design background, you were off to the races with the green and whites. You were thinking about branding. You were thinking about logos, even the name, everything property. Like, so you were off to the races with that. And so to kind of bring it back is like my message and what I'm really drawn to is like seeing people's dreams come to life and their visions. And I think my responsibility and my impact that I hope to have is to educate, entertain, inspire, to really be that person for a lot of people and see, you know, the beauty that comes as a result of that.
I mean, it comes down to as well, like there's action. No, there's talking about the thing and actually doing the thing. And we talked about this off air. I mean, huge difference between the two, right?
Yes, sir.
The
huge difference.
Yeah, like
they're not the same.
No, they're not the same. But like, like as I said, I had mates where like they talked about doing something and they're always going to do it, but they could never find the time or something come up and there's issues. But it's like there's never going to be that ideal time to do what you want to do. And like even with
it doesn't exist.
Even with property investing and getting into property. You know, you're going to always have life events. You're always going to have weddings. There's always going to be like, you know, if it's kids or nieces and nephews, you're always going to have those things in life, right? So one thing that I think I took away from Aaron Christie David's guest we had a few weeks back is he said you can't work in like do one or the other. He said you have to work in parallel with everything else that's going on. So it's like, I mean, with property, for example, as well, it's like, it's a very, like saving up that first deposit is the hardest. Like, because usually you have to come up with 70 to 100 grand saved up, and that can take people 2-3 years. And that's the hardest journey. Then once you get into equity, capital growth, you know, that kind of stuff, starts to snowball. But like, there's people that talk about doing it, and there is people that talk about doing it, but then actually do the thing. And I mean, this podcast is that credibility that I said what I was going to go out and do. I've done it. You as well with not only with your music, but your actions, and then the numbers that you post up, the people that you're serving. Like, do the numbers on what 5,000 people is. That's 100 people a week. It's 100 customers a week. For one person.
Which, by the way, if you really break down the numbers, it's not too crazy. If I'm thinking about maybe if I'm a barista, like how many people am I serving per day? The difference is when you do it in business as a solopreneur, you're getting all the skin in the game. You're taking all the risk. And as a result of taking all the risk, you also are entitled to all the reward. I'm
looking through what I did today before we had our chat is I went through and I screenshot some of the like what we sent to each other and
beautiful
and
documented. And this is the beautiful thing too, is when you start on this journey and you know where you're headed, you also understand to document. And this is where the real juice comes out, because at the time, like, it maybe doesn't have a lot of weight. But, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this conversation we're having now, it's ascending in value. It's going to appreciate in value.
It's appreciating. It's got that capital growth, bro. It's compounding. Yes, but, when we reach episode, maybe we'll get you back on episode 500.
Unreal.
Episode 1,000.
Unreal.
8th of March, 2023, I sent you a screenshot of the very first podcast that we posted. It was episode 1, an intro to the Everything Property podcast. I said, lock you in for 100 episodes, brother. #reps. What I want to ask you about that and probably talk to as well is your idea around reps and luck.
Yes.
Luck sort of creation.
Yes.
Talk to me about how important reps are.
So I like to think that I got my degree from YouTube University and I got my master's in lock engineering.
Yeah.
Right? So it's this idea that a lot of people like to leave things to luck, and I was raised seeing my mum to with this idea that you can create your own destiny. You can manifest the things that you want in life, and not just from a spiritual perspective, but from the understanding that if I spend, 10 hours in the gym today shooting those shots, that eventually one day soon all that effort will not go to waste. And so, there's Newton's law. It's like for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So at the start, it's like, I think an example James Clear provided, which is this idea of like you're melting the ice cube and you're heating the ice cube up slowly. And then at a certain point it starts melting. And so it's this idea with our efforts that a lot of the time people are giving up too early. If you just stick with it, if you do the reps, you are going to get to that point where the ice cube melts. You are going to get to that point where, and the quote that I absolutely love is, I think Jacob Rees, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but watch the stone cutter as he does his work. He hits the rock over and over again. He's trying to break the rock, right? 99 times the rock still hasn't broken, but on the 100th hit, that rock splits. And he understands that it wasn't the 100th hit that made all the difference. It was the 99 he'd done before. And so that idea of the 100 reps, that idea of like, I mean, it even applies to workouts and fitness. It's like if you do 100 workouts in a certain time period, what do you think's going to happen? If you eat 100 healthy meals in a row, what do you think's going to happen? It's that cause and effect. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
100's a really good number too, I feel. Because if you're posting...
It sounds nice.
It sounds nice, but like even if you're posting and you do 100 days consistently, like that's 3 months, you will start to see that magic in those numbers. It's funny, you sent me a screenshot, January 2023. Joe Rogan couldn't get his microphone to work on episode 1. Now he's worth $120 million. Put in the reps.
I think it's a bit more than that now too.
I mean, since
that screenshot.
A little bit older, but like you've even got one here.
I guess just on that too, like for maybe there's somebody who's going to listen to this and hear our conversation. I think the biggest thing that my mother instilled in me was just giving myself the permission to start messy. You don't have to have everything figured out at the start. And it's a theme in this book called Reality Transurfing as well, written by like this Russian quantum physicist. Some people might be a bit woo-woo for them. For me, it's interesting, right? Yeah. Either way, I'm always going to take things kind of like a buffet. Like I take what I want from something, but I'm always ingesting information, always learning from new people. And it's like, you don't have to take everything somebody has said. You can take the parts that you like and that resonate with you. And so, it's this idea that you don't need to have 100 steps figured out. You just need to know the next logical step. And you take that step and you just do that again. Then you do that again. And eventually, looking back, it all makes sense. And I think that's a Steve Jobs quote as well. He said something about it makes sense when you look in reverse. But while you're doing it, you're kind of just taking these steps. You're like, well, that seems like the next logical thing to do. So let me just roll with that. Start
messy and just look at the next step, then the next step, then the next step.
Correct.
One funny thing that I also screenshotted to show you was that October 2023, I said just the beginning. This is 1 month after starting video content as well. Just the beginning. Between both of these accounts, 350,000 eyeballs every 30 days. You said, man hasn't even hit 100 posts yet and look at him go. I'm predicting that you'll quit your job after 150 eps.
Bro, I've got goosies a little bit there.
Yeah. Guess what? You're wrong. I quit my job at the start of this year. So you're 50 eps off, bro.
Listen,
but
fantastic. Fantastic. I had to give a bit of leeway, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. We got there in the end.
So how does that feel? What was the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back for you? What made you go, okay, now it's time? So
one of my issues is that you will work the entire year. You will work, 9 to 5. Obviously, you work longer. You
not
put
9 to 5, as I've seen you say recently.
It's not 9 to 5.
Break that down. It's never just 9 to 5.
It's not 9 to 5. I did a short. It went viral. It didn't go viral, but I did a short and I talked about it. But my issue was it's not. Everyone calls it 9 to 5. It's not 9 to 5. For me, I'm leaving home at 7:30. I'm getting home at 6:30 p.m. It's 11-hour day.
Yeah.
Your day's 24 hours. That's almost half my day that I'm spent at work.
Well, it's more than half your day because how many hours are you sleeping?
Exactly. You chuck in if you're spending 8 hours, if you ideally you're sleeping 8 hours, that's 19. That gives you 5 hours to do everything else in your life. Gym, get ready, shower, eat, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Business somewhere in there. Obviously, we've got to cut into the sleep part, which is what I did for a lot. For me, I was putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it got to the end of the year. We did I already had the wheels in motion. You know, obviously was building this thing for 2 years. Had plenty of ideas and plenty of things that Travis and I are working on behind the scenes. I had bought these development sites. I had those running. I was doing the DAs, doing all this after hours. And it was a big commitment to me, 9 to 5, 11 hours. And then it got to the end of the year, performance review and stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, so when you're in corporate, you do these things called KPIs, key performance indicators.
Yes.
Essentially what that is.
Hit your KPIs.
Hit your KPIs. Everyone hears about it. But what it is, you set up your rules for your goals for the year, and then, you know, mid-year, end of the year, you get measured against them. How you get measured against them, and then you get remunerated accordingly with how much of those goals that you hit. So my issue with that is, in the corporate world and in the particular situation that I was in, my KPIs for the year were in August. August marks the 8th month of the year when the year is 2/3 of the over. So you're asking me to write my goals for the year when 2/3 of the year's over.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, there's some other stuff that happened. I'll tell it on a full podcast.
Yeah.
But, you know, the bonus that came through, I don't think was a proper remuneration for the year that I had, for hitting all the KPIs, everything that was set, everything that was asked of me. And that's the thing. It's like you work all year, you don't know what it's going to be, and then what, they're going to dick you around. Like, you might get dicked around at the end of the year with something, revenue or blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And so me, I just, like, on that same day, I went home and I said to my partner, I was like, I'm going to quit first day back, and I'm going to have a run at this, because at the end of the day, and Arj Paliwal, he's a buyer's agent, investor kit. Obviously, the audience will know him. I had him on ages ago, and something that I've heard from other people and from him as well, and what we talked about in that episode, was create the best worst case. And what that means is if you love your job and you love your 9 to 5, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. You're very lucky. Stay in that, love what you do, and you've got a good job. Hopefully it pays you well, but you wake up every day wanting to go to work. But for the entrepreneurial person like myself, at the end of the day, you need to create the best worst case. So for me, I was thinking, look, what's the worst case? The worst case is I quit this job. The podcast is going to keep going. The developments, I don't know. The worst case is I lose my money there and I've got to go back to work. I can then I can work at a job closer to home. I've got a really good network now of people. There's people that have offered me jobs, like, to continue to work in development. So I was like, well, look, if I got a job closer to home, I'd bring that 11 hours closer to 8 or 8.5 if it's a 10, 15 commute, something in around the city. Yeah. So I was like, worst case is I give this a crack. Money saved up, money coming in from other ways, business ventures, that kind of stuff. I was like, well, if I've got to go back to my job in 8 months, 12 months, I can just find another job. I can start fresh somewhere. That's the worst case.
Find another job. Yeah,
that's the worst case. So that's not a bad worst case at the end of the day. Like, worst case, I said to my partner as well, I was like, let's buy it. Like, worst case is, we know what we can sort of earn if we stay in corporate. She's on her business journey too. I'm on mine. Worst case is we know what we can earn in corporate. We know what we can buy with that. And it's it might be an apartment, but it might be located very well, beachside suburb. Like, it'd be decent. Yeah. I was like, for that to be my worst case, go back to a job, find somewhere closer to home. I've got more experience now. I'll also go to them with a track record of running my own developments, property portfolio, all that kind of stuff.
And a property podcast.
And the property pod and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
That's the worst case.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur. I said, well, why not have a crack? So that was the plan. Hand my resignation in first day back.
How did that feel?
Man, like...
Was it scary? Was it excitement? Was it...
When I made my mind up after that end of year review date, when I made my mind up in December last year that I was going to do it first day back, it meant that I had an incredible holiday, end of year Christmas shutdown, because I knew the journey and I did some planning.
This year was going to be different.
Crunched the numbers. Yeah. But like at the end of the day, I said to, I've said this to Trav too, but like if I've got to pack shelves at Coles in the PMs, in the midnight, like refill, restack, whatever they call that shift, if I've got to do that to make everything else work, I'll do that. I'm now in a position where I will do that to make it work.
Yes.
So how did I feel? The day that I did it, it was relief. It felt like mentally and emotionally that I was free, that like I cannot tell you, I wanted to get out of like not only working 9 to 5, but the sort of environment I was in. And look, I left a few really good mates behind, but they got it. They know what I'm like. They've been working, like we've been really good friends at work for a few years. I respect them. They're all on their journeys, but when I told them, they got it. And one of the most sort of fulfilling parts of it was an old manager that I worked for at the same company, but he left probably a year before me. Everything sort of went downhill after he left. But when I spoke to him the other day and I told him what I was doing, he was very excited. He was like, man, I'm excited for you. I'm proud. I said this to you in your job interview, which I still remember too. And my direct manager said it as well. They're like, look, I can see what you're like. Come here, get the skills, get the time under your belt that you need to do. And then I've got the feeling that you won't be around here forever. Like you're the type of guy to go out and start your own thing. And so for me,
exactly what you did.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, and I can get into this on it's a whole podcast, but like for me and what property is for me is leveraging the 10 years of design and development experience I've got. So how can I leverage that? I worked for all these bosses that made tens of millions of dollars each year. Some projects you finish, like it's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's huge money. At the end of the day, I'm still paid that salary. I know what I'm going to make at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And like you might settle a job where it's millions and millions of dollars in profit. It might be $50 million in profit. And then you work on that job for the whole year, but then they go, oh, yeah, look, this is what we feel like giving you this year.
Yeah.
Whereas me, it's like, well, if I've invested in property, I started my property journey in 2014. I was like, everything here is doubled. It's grown. I've got the capital now. I can then leverage that money quickly into development. People say, and, we had a meal. We had a meal on the podcast last week. We spoke about development. Everyone thinks it's risky. It is, and I understand, but it is risky for those that don't know what they're doing. Eye surgery is risky if you're going to perform it on me. But if you've got the best eye doctor in the country, not the best, but like obviously in my case, someone that's been doing it for 10 years, you've alleviated a lot of the risks.
Yes.
So for me, it was like, I'm not going to get any younger. I don't have kids. I'm a rent investor, so I don't have that heavy mortgage. I've got the mortgage of the development sites, different story. But I was like, time for me to go at this and give it a crack. And like with my personal brand and my videos and stuff like that, I'm prepared to share that journey with everyone to show them what it's like and how we do that, man. So, yeah, it's exciting, but I think it was time coming. It was time to do it, and man, that's me this year. I'm moving all in, and I mean, like guys like you, it's like I've got so many mates that are like business minded, like Trav, where they've worked for themselves for ages, and they're like, oh man, welcome to the life.
Welcome to the club. Welcome to I finish at 9 a.m. and then I do whatever the hell I want afterwards. Now listen, that is no knock. I think when people speak like this, the one thing that I want to make clear is that I'm not anti 9 to 5.
No way.
I watched my mum work, way too hard for too long to ever knock the 9 to 5, right? She wasn't doing 9 to 5. She was doing, work till midnight shifts, So you talk about like an 11-hour workday, like sometimes she was doing 13, 14-hour work days once you add everything up, once you add the commute.
100%, bro.
So I think the issue I have with 9 to 5s is when you've picked that reality for yourself and you're not making a effort to get out of that if that's not something you want. Because if we compare our lifestyles as Australians to other countries, Thailand, for example, love Thailand. There's some people out there working on the street selling noodles for, 40 cents equivalent, and they'll work for 13 hours straight. And that grandma who's selling the noodles, she's going to take that money and give it to her grandchildren because that's the only reason she's doing it. So to put into context is like, okay, if you've got I think people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. The moment we don't have a good boss, the moment we are getting micromanaged, the moment we are being told to do things and we're already trying our best, that's when, it really starts to get difficult.
I agree. And there's a few things I probably won't comment on, but it resonates a lot for me in my situation. There's nothing wrong with the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just say that. But
it's the launch pad. That's where you build your dreams.
That's where you build. Use the 9 to 5 to fund everything, and then use the 5 to 9 p.m. or midnight to then build what you want to move into. If not, if you're in your 9 to 5 and you're happy to do it and you love your job, there's nothing wrong with that. Congratulations.
They don't even need to hear what we say.
The people that I am talking to is like the people that are unhappy, that have that sort of entrepreneurial spark, that want to give something a crack. Then I would say, do your 9 to 5, get out of the office, and then that's what I was doing. I used to get home at 6:30 p.m. I would have 30 to 45 minutes to eat dinner, say hello. Gnocchi, our co-host, my beautiful little four-legged furry son. Say hello to them, 45 minutes, and then I just crack on to 7:15, all the way through to midnight. Then I'm up at 5, gym, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I've been doing the last 2 years, bro.
You've always been about it.
Nothing wrong with the 9 to 5. And I think it comes down to as well, one thing that in property is great is that leverage is once I save up my money and I buy that first property, that property grows in value. I can then extract a level of equity, which is basically some of that value, and I can use that to then leverage into the next property. And I'm only using 10 to 20% of the price of the property. Like, difference between property and shares, like leverage is like the number one key, because I'm only putting in 50, 60, 75 grand, but I am controlling an asset worth 500 grand. Correct. So if I'm, putting in 75 grand to buy something for $500,000 and that's growing, let's say I go into a market that's growing at 10%, that property, that $500,000 property grows at 10%, that's 50 grand. I put in 75 grand to start with, so I've leveraged up. The same thing with working the 9 to 5 is, and I posted this on LinkedIn, so apologies if anyone sort of follows me on there that is also listening to this, but I'll say it again because I think it's important.
Repetition is important, man.
No, repetition, but also that hourly leverage. Like, most people's salary is based on hourly. Yeah. So you can only get paid 8 hours a day for that particular job. Yeah. You go home, you do whatever, blah, blah, blah. No matter what your hourly rate is, within reason of your industry, you can only get paid for those 6-7 hours a day. When you're at the beach or when you're on weekends, you can't get paid. So you're sort of fixed in that.
In man hours.
In that, yeah. So I feel like property and development, in my case, has huge leverage, because development, I'll give you an example. I worked, after hours, probably 6 to 8 weeks on a DA, submitted that. That was my really only commitment. Now, the what I'll end up to go on to make, when you try to qualify that down to like an hourly rate, like, it's bananas. Yeah. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit, and it's only taken me that little DA sort of to put together. Whereas in my 9 to 5, I'm like, if I spent that same 8 hours of working on the D in my 9 to 5, I'm only paid at my hourly rate. Could be $20, could be $50, could be $100. You know what I mean? So there's no leverage there. So what I said in that post and what I say to people is that, like, if you don't like your job or you're looking to get out of it or swap or whatever, look for a skill set or a career or a business where you can leverage the amount of work you do into something else. So for me, it was like a little bit of work, a couple of hours into the DA, which I know will make the hundreds of thousands to a million, depending on the size of the development. You know, a good idea, a good example as well. Nathan, a mate of mine on LinkedIn, software engineer, he can code and punch out code. He can do a week's worth of code. He can create either a website, a app, or a SaaS, and that thing be running and churning out product, money, or like sell that to other people. Once he's done that week of work, that product can then be able to, help people for their businesses. Then he can go on to the next thing. Now he might set that up in a business where he has, you might pay a SaaS is like a software as a service, like a mortgage broker as well is really good. A mortgage broker is someone that will find you the loan, but they will get paid an initial upfront fee, could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 by the bank, and then they get the trail of that loan for the entire duration, that 30-year duration, provided that you don't change banks or refinance. So it's like that leverage, I think, is key, and I think that's something that we always talk about, right? Because you've got your music and that kind of content, but that's leverage in another way, don't you reckon? What do you think?
Yes. So I'm just going to shout out someone very specific here, which is Jack Butcher. And he's like he makes visual designs. He's very good at communicating visually.
Okay, let me have a look.
So Jack Butcher has this idea of like build once and sell twice. And it connects really. He did the illustrations for the Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Ooh, okay. That's by the way,
great.
That's
book.
a mad book.
Great book.
Yeah,
great book. So the thing with Naval is Naval explained leverage, and leverage not in terms of leverage in a negotiation, like as in I have this and I can use that. Not leverage as in finance specifically, but leverage in terms of Archimedes leverage, which is like an old physics concept. This idea that, give me, I'm paraphrasing here, give me a point and a lever long enough at which to stand on, and I'll be able to move the world. So when you put, for example, a seesaw, right? You could have one person, if the lever's long enough, you could have one person lift up 50 different people on the other end of the seesaw. And so how that applies to nowadays, and it connects back to AI, it connects to social media, is this idea is that you and I can make this podcast once, and this can be viewed thousands of times, tens of thousands of times on simultaneously different devices, and it's essentially something that people can view while you and I are sleeping. And so Jack Butcher, like I don't know what the exact quote is, but it's kind of like this idea that if you want to make money while you are asleep, learn to help people while you are asleep. And so when we are creating things like video to educate people, when I'm creating music, somebody can listen to my music 24 hours a day. I don't have to be there. When it comes to
over.
Correct. And that's why I think that's what a lot of people are starting to understand now, is that like 10 years ago, YouTuber wasn't a career title, and now you have a lot of kids wanting to be YouTubers. And it's not just from a fame and respect and recognition level, it's understanding the economics of being able to create something that people can view millions of times. And also, once I put this out, for my entire lifetime that people view my videos, they can go back and watch this. And that's the beautiful part about doing the reps and building the catalog, which you've done, which is not only does somebody find you now from this first episode or from any episode that you do, or
I remember you telling me this back in the day.
Every single episode is just another entry into the catalog. Just because you find a TV show on season 7 doesn't make the first 6 seasons irrelevant. Actually, they're so important to the series. So there's going to be some people from your audience that find me for the first time, and they're going to go back and be able to listen to 100 plus songs. They're going to be able to watch some of my journey from the last 5 years and be caught up to speed and become instant fans. And it's vice versa. It's like somebody now is about to go and find your podcast for the first time, and boom, they can binge watch 100 episodes. Yeah. And so it's this important idea of building the catalog that I think will help a lot of artists to maybe not overthink chasing the hit as well. And maybe for people on social media to create and not think about, okay, damn, this this clip didn't go viral. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're adding that to the catalog. Somebody who finds you tomorrow is going to go back and watch these anyway. So what you're doing is you're creating a massive creative portfolio that people can then reference in the future. Because the things that you and I are talking about today are still probably, most of it is probably still going to be relevant in 10 years' time. And that's going to make this episode, you know, ascend in value, as we mentioned earlier. But also for anything that isn't relevant, like maybe I was completely wrong about AI. Yeah. Maybe agentic AI isn't coming to, you know, impact everybody, right? Yeah. It's still fascinating to have that snapshot of, okay, that's what he was thinking about in that moment. That's what Davey was talking about in that moment and really focused on. And if you want to zoom all the way out, it's a beautiful opportunity for our grandkids, our great-grandkids to come and, you know, see, you know, because I would have loved to have seen my great-grandfather sit down. In action and... Correct. It just would have been cool.
True.
So, like, take the views away, take recognition away, and all of that. It's just a really cool digital archive. You know what I mean? So
I think you're right with you say build a content library, and like anyone like that is building, and it will flow in, and we'll talk to after this personal brand.
Yes.
But I think anyone that is in any sort of business is you need to build that content library of consistently putting out good quality content, showing people what you do. And yeah, like you said, I was like, with the podcast, it's like people will find episode 100 or they'll find episode 96 and then they'll go back and listen to all of them again from the start. So it's like you have to put in the reps to have that library there for people to go and look at. What you mentioned at the start, and I'll give everyone a little juicy bonus and a bit of homework, but go on Spotify or YouTube and type Naval, Naval, How to Get Rich, and listen. That's 3.5 hours.
It's a longie. It's a longie.
You either listen to that on like a bit up speed, 1.2, 1.5 speed, or
I would argue, listen to it on slow speed and absorb it. Because listen to it more than twice. I listen to it every year, so just as a reminder.
But that is a video or like a thing to put on, and like the way this guy thinks, and then he's obviously got the book, is just like, it is another level. And I think like what he talks about with leverage and business and like mindset, like if anyone out there listens to that, they will then, I'm hoping after you've listened to it, you come back and tell me, send me a message, come back and tell me.
Too.
Send us a message and tell me what your thoughts on about it. It is, for 3.5 hours, for that to be free is ridiculous.
Absolutely, I agree.
Talk to me about personal branding.
So I personally think of personal brand not as brand, because I feel like that word has been overused by everybody. Build your personal brand, build your brand, but as reputation. What is my personal reputation? What am I known for? What do people know that I do? How do people know how I operate? These are things that are so important. So if you start thinking of, you know, your personal reputation and building that and maintaining a reputation that is beneficial to what you do, I think that let's start talking about building your personal reputation. That's how I think about it. So when it comes to like your personal reputation, especially, I guess this is where I kind of ran into issues with the sneaker community, and I've had some of my friends also run into those issues.
Just quickly on that, Shop and Swap, it's crazy that I was also in that group. And I'm sure any dude in Sydney that like early 2010s like was sneaker fashion, Shop and Swap was the group.
They knew it.
I mean, it died off and like it fizzled out, but fuck, man, what a group.
Yeah.
Cop some grails on that shit.
Man. I think it started the journey for a lot of people, and it gave that platform for basically people to just sell their stuff. And I think that's powerful because, you know, once you get that bug of selling one thing, two thing, you realize you can sell stuff on the internet. You're like, well, where do I go from here? So
the rest is history.
So when it comes to like personal brand specifically and personal reputation, it's just thinking about who do you want to associate yourself with? And what do you want to associate yourself with? And it's making decisions based on a long-term horizon, not just today, not just next month. Because the beauty of having a personal brand that is strong, or a personal reputation that is strong, is that it allows you into rooms that you would not have gotten into otherwise. It allows you to have conversations with people that, you know, you wouldn't usually be able to reach had you not taking the time to really put, your skin in the game and put your face to a name and really get there and put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always say it as well, is that people do business with people, not businesses.
Correct.
So you're the front-facing person of, like, if you work at a company or for yourself, and, like, it's almost as if, like, oh, I buy my clothes from Kido because, I like his shit, and I'm on board with who he is and, like, yeah, like you said, what he does and his reputation. But, like, say if you were to jump ship, I mean, you work for yourself, so it's not really applicable, but, like, if you worked for someone and then you jumped ship to another one, I'm loyal to, like, you as a person. Like, my barber, for example, he's a 17-year-old kid. Yeah. He was working in a barbershop in Randwick, Sydney, New South Wales, Randwick. 17-year-old kid, and he is a gun barber. I mean, I'm due for a fade, but gun barber. And then he said to me, he's like, oh, look, I'm finishing up. And I was like, oh, man, what are you going? What are you doing? He's like, well, he goes, I'm opening my own shop.
Unreal.
And he goes, like, I'm opening my own shop. Now, obviously, with that situation, like, I'm not loyal to that barbershop just because it's a barbershop. I'm loyal to the dude that's cut my hair, that I've built a relationship with, that knows I've got the property pod, that we talk property every time I come in. And, like,
you have the relationship.
You have that relationship. So if you take anything away from this chat as well, is that importance of personal brand and building that relationship with people. You need to show up consistently, good quality. Like you said, it's that reputation. It's people knowing what you do. Like, we have, when we launched EPM, we had people reach out and want to do the video content. And I went on their social profiles to be like, oh, who's this person? Like, some people didn't know. Who's this person? What do they do? They haven't posted anything. They haven't posted since 2017.
Yeah.
Or their account is 0 posts. I'm like, you need to start this journey off. Start telling people who you are, your face, they trust you, so that now the clients that we work with, for example, when you post and, like, you share your stuff, you share your wins, you share how great you are, how you saved money or save your clients money, people already start to understand, like, I know Kido. I know the type of deals he brings in. I know what he looks like. I know what he talks about. I know what he's passionate about, and I know where his values are, like, from all your content, what you talk about. Same with me, same with the guys that we create content for. That way, not only do you need, like, seven touch points with a person to convert them as a customer, but, like, that way when you're doing that with someone and they already have sort of like a warm lead, then they are comfortable with Kido, or they comfortable with me, and they know, like, who you are. They know what you're about. It's not jumping on a cold call and having to start that stuff again. Yeah. So that you can be, the society doesn't reward the best person at any practice, the best practitioner. Society rewards the best known.
Yes. The
person that is out there and the best known for doing the thing. So if you're not putting anything out there in 2025, like, that's cool. I understand it might not be your thing, but just know that no one will know. We don't know you exist.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I think, like, personally for me, I don't think everybody should be out here trying to, do it to the extent that you or I are doing it. But there is that value of, sharing a few of the things that you're interested in. So it could be as simple as, a real estate agent showing off, like, what type of cars they're into, or maybe, like, you're a big Lego collector. It's adding elements and layers to the personality that immediately sets you apart from everybody else in your industry. And so the more that we can add those layers is the more we are giving other people opportunities to connect with us. And at the end of the day, that is what having a personal reputation is allowing other people to be able to connect with you and to know more about you.
You know what's funny about this, and you sort of trigger me there, but the funniest part about this, and where most people get wrong with any sort of content, is they copy. Yeah. Is they copy someone else. We get it all the time. I send it to Trav. I'll be like, look what they're doing. They're copying us again. What people don't understand is you are given the absolute golden ticket in the fact that you are unique and you are one of one.
Yes.
People dismiss that and go, oh, no. Oh, what he sees I like, I'm going to copy the exact same. Yeah. But I feel like people, consumers, podcast listeners, people in property, they're not dumb. People can see when something's copied and ripped off, and our stuff gets ripped off all the time, people can see that they're not dumb. And what you've just done is went, hey, this is my strongest asset myself. I'm going to leave that behind and try to be number two. When you're number two or number three, you're on the set behind that person at the front. So it's like your like little quirks and your little mannerisms and your hobbies and how you talk and what you like doing are what makes you unique. There's a dude, I'll give you a perfect example, and I'll just get his name up so I don't butcher the spelling. All right, so shout out to this guy. There's this guy called Jaden Niparis from Ray White Caboolture.
Okay.
I'll play one of his videos.
Afternoon, it's Jaden Niparis from Ray White in Caboolture. This afternoon, we're out in a limbo today, dropping flies off for 52 to 54 Lee Ray.
You see him?
Yes, sir.
Now, what I love the most about this guy is he's pale skin, he's got red hair, he's a young dude. He looks like in his early 20s, real estate agent. He's not trying to copy anybody else. He's been himself. He knows he's a bit quirky, but he's putting himself out there. He's recording the vids. He's not trying to be like anyone else, and it's authentic. And if you look at the views that this guy gets, this guy's averaging $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. He's done brand deals with let me go through. He's been in the paper. He's done brand deals with sunscreen, protein brands, drink brands, all that kind of stuff. Why? He's built his personal brand. He's just shared he goes through, he shares his deals as a real estate agent, how many people he's going to. He's not trying to be everyone else. He's not trying to dye his hair. He's not trying to be the next Gavin Rubinstein. He's just being one of one, the unique. You can't copy that. Or if you can, if I try to copy this guy, imagine how dumb I would look.
Yeah.
Even he's leaning into. He's in Caboolture. He's got the Aussie accent. Jaden from Ray White Caboolture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that is for me. This dude is a perfect example of a strong, authentic personal brand. He's showing up there. He's posting videos regularly, and that's what I think people got to do. Like if you want this. If you want to build the personal brand or a business, is like you got to be one of one. You got to be yourself.
Yeah.
You got to be posting just organic shit that is not trying to be anyone else. Because people can see it through. People can see through it pretty easy, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think a big thing that people overthink is the word quality. Right? Because there has been countless videos that have look like they've been shot on a potato. Right? And have, so the biggest thing is with quality, that is so subjective that until you've done the reps, until you've tried, until you've experimented, until you have, had your own experience with it, you're not going to know what's going to work. And by, sitting in the stands and just watching and thinking about doing it, you're not going to know what works, because something that might work for somebody else might not work for you. And so I guess personally for me on the music side is, when you're learning how to make music or when you're learning how to make art, you are copying your heroes. You are looking at exactly everything they do. You are watching their old videos of how they made beats. And so I also, like, when you first start out, I think it's actually okay to want to be like other people. But you have to realize, and you have to come back to square one and realize that the things that set you apart are going to become your greatest strengths. And I guess specifically with art, is this idea that your taste and your skill level, your taste and your skill level are not always at the same level. So it's constantly like this battle of like, how do I make something as good as what I like? And then all of a sudden over time, your taste is improving. You're liking more stuff because you understand, okay, that type of music was easy to make. Now I appreciate this type of music. And that kind of reverberates no matter what art you're making. Is like your skill level is constantly chasing after your taste level. And the moment it matches is like that might be the day that you stop making art. It's that gap that creates all the meaning. Why you keep creating, why you keep going. And so I think at the start, like, people shouldn't be too worried about taking references from other people. I think that should be fine. The issue is when you copy them direct and then are completely not aware that you are doing that. That's when it's an issue. When you're trying to pass other people's work off as your own, that's an issue.
Yeah, like people copy and paste the same thing.
Yeah, you're like, okay, that's
like
not
the exact
that's not
same
how it's done.
design, like
Yeah.
the exact same story, or the
Yes.
exact same like. I had a guy like word for word copy my video and post that as his
Yeah.
own, and it was an analogy that I used. That
Which
I
is a
came up
kind
with.
of bit like,
I was like, come
that's
on,
a bit
bro.
how you going.
Yeah, and then like
Yeah.
even a mate of mine, Aiden Hartley, like he posted like this guy just literally copied and pasted his entire written post.
Yeah.
And just like try to sell it as his own. One thing that's funny that you say about with like quality and showing up, I did a test last year and posting consecutive days. I think I did like 150 or something like that. But it's funny because if you show up consistently, when I did that challenge, I was aiming for 90 days. I had a bet with a mate. It's called the dog food challenge. Shout out my mate Paulie. It's called
Shout
the
out Paulie.
It's called the dog biscuit challenge. What it is if you don't post a video throughout that 90 days, you got to post a video every day for 90 days. If you don't, you have to eat a dog biscuit.
Okay.
So I ended up smashing it, did 150 or something. But on day 3, I did a video that hit 2.4 million views.
Did you know it was going to go that big?
No. The worst part is day 3, bro.
That's exactly.
Day 3. Because I showed up and I posted consistently. There was another video, I will never forget this, where I was, what I was doing. I was halfway through a renovation. I was sweaty. I was an absolute mess. It was 11:57 p.m. I said, I have to post this video. If I don't, then I lose the challenge. And I had to show up and I had to post it. I posted that video. That video itself, I think it did like 1.7, 1.8 million views. And I was just like, now the funny thing with that was like, it went all right, but then it was like, the algorithm's weird, man. Like a month after, then it started just going boom.
Just hit.
Through the roof. Like it maybe got 10K and then it just went like that. And I was like, fuck, it's like, cause you show up, cause you post consistently, like those things happen. One, the first reward was me starting. Third post, boom, here's your dopamine that you need to keep you going. And then I think that other one came like at the end, like 100 days in or something. And it was like, just when you think you're about to give up and you just give that little bit more, it was just like, boom, again. And it's like the stats behind them are like, one video can change your life. Like you see that with the Hock Tour girl and like all that kind of shit. But like,
the Fleetwood Mac guy riding a skateboard with the cranberry juice.
100%.
You can't even, you probably can't copy that. Even like, let's say you were the first one to make that video. You were him, right? You can't, how do you copy what that did in culture? You can't. So like a big thing is like, even when you're posting content, even when you're posting songs, you don't really know which one is going to go.
Yeah.
And so it's about like, okay, let me try this. Even if it isn't your 3rd video that goes, even if it's like your 200th video that goes, the reps you're doing in the meantime is you're learning. And if we can look at it as a learning experience, like I'm not losing, I'm either winning or I'm learning. And if you can carry that, you know, you're good. You're good to go.
Win, learn, pivot or reiterate, test, and go again. Who are some people in sort of like business world that you look up to, or that you take a lot from their learnings, what they're putting out, those kinds of like older like business, not mentors, but like public figures?
Yeah.
Who are you liking?
So obviously a big one, Naval, especially on the business side of things. Naval, just because I think that his communication style is concise, clear. It's something that I aspire to reach, that level. And also just the depth of the ideas that he's speaking about and is able to make them palatable to most people. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, I think he was huge on just this idea of mental models, and mental models being this kind of like a framework of ideas you can connect to each other in order to make better decisions. So I'm huge into mental models. We can dive into that.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Obviously, Russ, huge, because before Russ, my only musical references really for like the music that I loved were Kanye, 50 Cent, the Cranberries, I was raised on AC/DC, obviously. Like, I could go on for hours about music influence, but to me, I always like Kanye because he was making his own beats. And just that idea to me, you know, you got to think, I'm an Aussie only child raised by a single mom, and I'm just sitting there making music by myself. I'm like, I needed a reference to understand it was possible. And for me, early on, that was Kanye. And then Russ didn't come till later. And then I was like, wow, this is an artist getting platinum selling records. And he just made his songs on his computer, on his laptop, by himself. No one was mixing, mastering, engineering, and so he was a huge influence on me for sure. And then in terms of like musical style as well, and something that maybe people probably wouldn't hear if they listen to my music, is XXX Tentacion.
Oh,
so X,
man.
Because I like
Sad boy times,
yeah,
huh?
even so for me and Lil Peep as well, it was just those two were doing. There were prime like SoundCloud eras, like do whatever type of music you want to do. So combine that with like the message I'm getting from Russ, which is like, hey man, like you don't need like everybody else. You can do this yourself, right? You can make the beats, you can record your voice, you can engineer it, you can mix and master it, and then by the way, you can also distribute it by yourself, right? And then on the other side is like the influence of Silicon Valley business. So from Naval, which is this idea of like, okay, hey, you might be by yourself, but there's this thing called Archimedes leverage, which if you understand how these tools work, if you make the right moves, you're not just one man anymore. You can multiply yourself. You can build once and sell twice. And so it's kind of like been a huge like collision of all those ideas. Obviously, I read like a lot.
Tell me, let's run through books and stuff too, and then we'll jump back to mental models.
Yeah, I'm always careful with giving book recommendations because I feel like I could give you a book recommendation, but you're not in the right period of life for that. You know what I mean? So whenever I've spoken to you about this, I've always, I mean, I'm sure you can remember, but I was like, here's my keto guarantee. I'll give you $100. If you get nothing from this book, I'll give you $100, right?
Yeah, okay.
So that's why I'm real careful with book recommendations.
Yeah.
Because certain books will speak to you at different eras of your life. I think one would be just to kind of, if you're interested in internet, in content, in building for the future, I would definitely say the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, just from like a strategic / like ideas point of view. So like high level type of thing. Not high level as in hard to understand, just high level in terms of like thinking bigger.
Yep.
Especially as we head into an era of AI and that influencing our lives. I would also recommend, like for me, I mean, early on, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have read Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I feel like there's a lot of things in there that are very potent. Specifically, I would focus on like the idea of masterminding. And the perfect example of that is just when you're building something, you need to be surrounded by the right people. So even as a solopreneur, I've got a lot of friends that are on this same journey, and then I'm able to go back and forth with and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? So on and so forth. So even though I am building by myself, I have always had and always been focused on like keeping that network of people that I can rely and trust on, and also people that have got skin in the game. So they're not just throwing me left-hand opinions because like they felt like it. It's more like, hey, this is what I'm doing on my day-to-day. You have that like believability, weighted decision-making, which connects to, I guess, another book recommendation, which is Principles by Ray Dalio. So in there, he talks about believability, weighted decision-making, which is kind of like, if you've got like a stylish friend, that's who you ask for like fashion tips, because you're like, man, you look good. Like the weight in your opinion is a lot bigger because I know I can see you. You've been stylish for years. Like I'm going to take your advice. You know what I mean? Yeah. When it comes to property, of course, I'm going to be like, hey, Davey, what's up? This is what I've been thinking about. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So it's about using that believability, weighted decision making. So yeah, so Almanac, Naval Ravikant, Think and Grow Rich. Obviously, I think Think and Grow Rich is kind of like early on. I would also say like Psycho-Cybernetics, which is, I don't know whether you've read that one, but it's basically like, it's a lot of that, a lot of these books I read when I was like 17, 18, 19. So going back to like the importance of reading it at the right time, I read these at a fundamental turning point for me where I knew that my path might have been different from somebody else. And so I was filling my brain with information that I thought would help me get there. So,
mate,
yeah.
Can I add on to that as well? You recommended me How to Get Rich, Felix Dennis.
Yes.
Great book.
That's huge.
And
that one's huge.
MJ DeMarco, The Millionaire Fast Lane.
Absolutely. So How to Get Rich, Felix Dennis. That one is going to reach a different type of entrepreneur because that's written. I would argue maybe it's written a little bit more harsh, a little bit more like sharky.
Yeah.
Is how that struck me when I read it. But he was the head of like a major media company. The big thing that I noticed from that one was this idea of ownership isn't something, ownership is everything. And so if you look at how that reverberates entire, through society, is like there are a lot of artists right now who are performing in stadiums, performing in venues that they do not own. What happens when an A-League musician starts owning the stadiums that they're performing in? Just an interesting thought experiment to go through. And so when Felix Dennis says ownership isn't something, it's everything, it's kind of like, it just made me think about like, all right, music, everything that I'm making, I own. In terms of the business, my business is essentially like a high-paying job, and I'm transferring that into equity and transferring that into assets that I can build and own myself. And so, yeah, Felix Dennis, How to Get Rich, amazing. Millionaire Fastlane, I would have read that probably around 16. I read that alongside like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki. When you first get into it.
Yeah, I know.
I know, but I'm just trying to give you like the picture of where I was.
Dude,
like that's how early I was, right?
Fuck, you recommended it to me. Like this guy's how I am when I was 16.
No, so Millionaire Fastlane for me was like, I don't know. There was just so many ideas in that one, MJ DeMarco, and I appreciated once again that this wasn't a dude who was writing the book to get rich off the book. This was a dude who was already rich and was sharing what he thought about things. And I think that is a big, I guess, a takeaway from me and something that I've always tried to do, which is before I listen to somebody, I'm looking at what they're doing, I'm looking at what their life is, and I'm only looking towards people whose life I want to have. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because if somebody's miserable about their life, I'm going to take more of what not to do than what to do. That's a big thing with personal brand nowadays, is this idea of you need to believe in the things that you're selling and not just be selling the thing to get rich. And that's where I think a lot of people make the mistake of it's better to have documented the journey, shown the proof of work, and then be able to then leapfrog off of that, as opposed to trying to pass off something else as your journey and then it just not being, genuine and real. And that you'll see that a lot more as we move into the future, is like a lot of people trying to build like a faux business and then leverage that to like become, you know what I mean? Become what they were talking
about. The
e-com
space.
Correct.
And like, I've got an e-com brand that makes X business.
Yeah.
Like here's the blueprint, how to get and stuff like that. And, that's one thing. I mean, it's an interesting topic because we announced recently that we were starting a course with Everything Property. Now, the issue with this, and it comes back to why I started the podcast at the moment, is course is almost a really dirty word.
Yeah.
Because everyone sells a course and the new e-com bro and buy this and buy that and all that kind of stuff. And with the property industry, what everyone does, and my sort of bugbear with it, is that they're like, I'm a property guru, I know everything, this is the course, this is what you know. But what I've done with this course is completely different. I'm not making it about me, and I'm not trying to go out there to say to people, I'm a property guru, blah, blah, blah. News.com a while back posted an article. We had a laugh about this. They said property guru David Hammer, blah, blah, blah. And I had a vomit in my mouth. I was just like, nah. Never call me that, please. Like, you could probably call me, the Aussie slang C word before you call me that, because that's disgusting. But everyone tries to make themselves the guru. Now, let's just say you're a property guru. You've got your years of investing. Let's say you own 5 houses, 10 houses. You've done well, blah, blah, blah. You do your course. You sell your course based on that. This is how I've done it, blah, blah, blah. That's great. But what I did that's different, and what we're doing and putting out there for everyone, is that like we're building a course that no one else has obviously ever done. And I've come out and I've said it and I've documented it, so everyone can try to update their courses and blah, blah, blah. And there will be people that copy, but the people that I have on this course, the group of individuals, has not only been investing for about 75, 80 years, they have been across 10,000 plus property transactions. So I know you've got your 10, but we've got 1,000x of that between the four people. I can stand up there and tell you I know everything about, depreciation or the property data stuff. I get that. And I can do it, and that's what property gurus do. Oh, I'm so good. This is my God. What I did is that, no. He's the best dude or girl, male or female. He's the best person in the property industry that you need to listen to, who is part of the course, that has their entire career is devoted to this topic that you're going to learn on. Who would you trust more? Yeah. You're going to trust me, the guru that knows everything, or literally the person whose title is the thing that we're talking about, whether it's depreciation, whether it's tax, whether it's, conveyancing, all that kind of stuff. And so we put everyone together, 10,000 property transactions, 75 years of investing. We'll kick the ass of any property guru, anything like that. So I know, like you said it, and it's hard because I don't know what the wording is and how we sort of position it. But yeah, I feel like course is a dirty word, and you got to be careful because there are people out there, and like my main bugbear with property is that, like, property person, guru, pops up, couple of videos, they sell a course, blah, 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 but they actually haven't done the thing. I mean, I bought my first property in 2014. Now I'm on to developing. A lot of those DAs and stuff are in now. So it's like, anyone knows that development, how that works, they could be 4 months in council, they could be 12 months. So once we start to get onto site and construction and people see what I'm building and the development projects that we're doing, then they will understand the volume at which I am currently operating. So agree what you're saying. I think you need to do your research with anything like that, and you just got to understand the agenda of that person. Same with podcasts, and same with any type of business. What is the agenda of anything that they're doing? This podcast particularly, I try to make the agenda north arrow is directly up. I don't tell the stories much, but like, I'll give you an example. I had a guy come on and he wanted to pay $5,000 to come on for an episode to promote his property course in a type of development. I won't say which, in case like it might give it away, but type of development. He goes, I want to come on, $5,000 podcast episode. I want to promote the course. I said, cool. But I said, whoa. My audience is a group of property investors and property owners who always try to tell, always straight to. I'm always upfront and honest. There's no like charading and all that kind of stuff. Happy to give people advice. Happy to give people what would I do in your situation. But I haven't sold anything. I don't sell anything. Obviously, the course is coming, but that's well documented. But apart from that, there's no extra sell. I said to him, if you come on the podcast and we're doing it about you and the course and stuff, let me do the course to see if it's worth it. I'm in development. If it's a good course, I'll know. If it's a shit course, I'll also know. Now, the guy was charging $3,000-4,000 for that course. It was 10 videos that were about 2 to 3 minutes long. I did it. I wrote him 3 full pages of notes. I said, this is where you missed out. I've spent like 25-30 grand last year alone on my own personal development and stuff. I went through it. I made notes. I was like, this is what you need to change. This is what you need to add in. This is like how you need to break it down, especially with development. Development course needs to be detailed because it's high risk, high reward. Gave him that, delivered it, spent the time, sat down with him for an hour, went through it. The next day he comes to me and he goes, hey mate, made the changes, ready to go. I said, okay, send me the course again, let me run through it, and then if it's good and you've made the changes, like, we can talk about that. Never heard from him. Crickets. Yeah. So I said, if you're going to, like, this course that you're selling, like, basically my feedback was, if you want to charge that sort of price point, you need to put so much more value in it, because if I say to people, oh, yeah, come do this course, and people do that,
yeah,
I'm going to look like a dickhead, not let alone you.
Yeah.
Never come back. Or I say that, like, this thing would be worth $100.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything in it. I don't have any downloads. I don't have anything like that. Never came back to me. So, agenda, what is the actual business, who they are, what they're about, what they have done.
Personal reputation
and personal brand, my friend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You said you had more questions for me.
I do.
Tell me.
What's the biggest thing you've learnt 100 episodes in?
Wow, I haven't had time to think about that. I think one of my main takeaways, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, is everyone that we get in terms of property, there is so many different ways to make money. And there's so many ways for people to create wealth. We get Scott O'Neill on here. He's commercial. He tells you how he's built a $100 million commercial property portfolio. We get a resi guy on or a broker, and they tell that. There is a whole different ways to make money. There's no one right answer. Everyone tries to sell you that their way is the best way to create wealth. That's because it's worked for them, but what that doesn't do is take into your personal circumstances, what you're about, what your lifestyle is. So what I've tried to make this property podcast about, and also my main takeaway, is that there's so many different ways to make money and wealth through property. Listen to everyone's, take on board what they have to say, ask yourself those questions that I just spoke about. Then what you need to do is assess your own situation, your own circumstance. Now, obviously, if you're on 60 grand a year, then buying and trying to buy your first property that's $5 million commercial that you're going to need, $2 million for is unrealistic. So just think, how have these people made their money through property? What sort of appeals to you? What is, what will work for your lifestyle, your risk appetite to where you want to go? Some people that, only want 100 grand, 150 grand in passive income, you might not need to go down the development route. You might have to buy 5 properties in 5 years, hold them for 20 years, sell off 2 after 20 years, pay down the debt in the others, and those 3 properties will pay you, 40 grand, 30, 40 grand. So there's different ways to make money in property. Listen to, obviously, what this podcast and what other podcasts do is listen to everyone's journey, see what resonates with you, your circumstances, your risk profile, and where you want to go, and then go at that and leverage down or go down that alleyway, go down that sort of particular route. Whether it's, if you're a tradie, for example, you're listening to this and, you hear a guy that, like an episode we done with Matt Jolich, where there was a huge discrepancy that we found in some of those episodes between 3 and 4 bettors. Now, if you can spend the 50 grand and add a bedroom to a house, turn it from 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, we saw in those episodes, for example, like the 3 bedrooms are worth 750 grand, the 4 bedrooms are worth 1.1. Now, going there, adding on the bedroom and all that kind of stuff, if you're a tradie, great. Maybe that's what works for you. Maybe the commercial stuff that Scott talks about doesn't. Maybe the development stuff doesn't. You know what I mean? So pick what works for you. Potentially you're very risk adverse and you say, I'm not good on tools. I'm really good at my desk job. I work in, the bank, or I work in somewhere that I have 300-400 grand and I just made a 300 grand bonus this year. Okay, maybe commercials for you because you've got that that cash up front that you need, or developments for you. Or if you're single mom and you're on 60-70 grand a year, then maybe it's, buying something that is 300-400 grand and you start that way. There's no one way. So to summarize, there's no one way to make money. Obviously, everyone pushes their own agenda and how they've made money. Nothing wrong with that. But you need to understand that that's what's worked with them. Doesn't mean it works with you. So review that. Think, what is their agenda? What has worked for them? What are they teaching? Does that work for me? Does that work for my circumstance? And does that work for my end goal? And go from there.
Fantastic.
I think that's my main takeaway. That,
Yes,
and
sir.
also just do the thing. Start, like Kevin Buchanan from Both Sides probably said the other week, you'll always get through it. Bad point in your life, everything's down, you'll always be able to progress through it.
Yeah.
Like you think of the darkest times that you've had in your life, you've always been able to survive them and get through it. Just that perseverance and stay disciplined and just keep that center goal. You've got your horse blinkers on, move towards that goal and Don't worry about what other people are doing. There's so much noise. One thing I think people can get sidetracked with as well is you come on this podcast, right? And you say you're selling vintage clothes on the internet. And let's just say you go, oh yeah, I make about $250,000 a year. The mistake most people make is they go, oh, Kido's making $250,000 a year. We're earning vintage clothes. I'm going to go do that because I want to earn $250,000 a year. But your heart's not in it. Your passion's not in it. So guess what's going to happen when it gets hard? And when you're 2 years into this and you still aren't at $250,000, you're going to quit. Then you've wasted 2 years. So you need to follow passion. You need to follow what you're obsessed about, what you do that looks like work for others, Naval. What you do, what you think looks like work for others that you find as fun, that you find as play, and do that instead. You can make money doing absolutely anything. We've got mates that earn ridiculous money in development, in selling vintage clothes, in like the randomest shit. And if you're you can become successful and earn money in anything, but just make sure it's something that when it gets hard, when the passion or something like when the initial love dies, that you still have the discipline to keep going because it's that particular thing.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, on that, when it comes to the word passion, the origins of the word passion is passio, which means to suffer. So when we go to find your passion, find something that you would suffer for.
Yeah.
And that's, you found your passion, something you would willingly suffer for.
I agree. Follow passion. For me, it's property. For me, it's development. For you watching at home, it's going to be something completely different. For you, it's vintage clothes and music. Follow what you're passionate about. Follow what feels like play when others look at it and think that it's work. And that is I think the goal to longevity in anything you do. So look, Kido, I think we'll wrap it up there, man. I don't know what the time is on this app, but it has been insane.
Sure.
Next stop, 500 eps, man. So I appreciate you coming on. Tell me two things that we usually end on. One is golden nugget, one bit of advice that you can leave with the audience. And the second one is, what's a quote you live your life by?
Okay, golden nugget. The golden nugget's going to be a story, okay? So I just want you to imagine yourself in an orchard and there's fruit everywhere, right? And you're down there with the expert fruit picker. He's walking you through the orchard. You're following behind him. You're going to the same trees as him, right? So this expert orchard fruit picker, you're watching him and you're picking up all the techniques. But the problem is you're going to the same trees as him. So every time you go to the tree, you know exactly how to do the thing, but there's no fruit left over on that tree for you. It's not until you venture out on your own, you go into the orchard, you maybe go down another aisle, maybe walk another 100 meters, that you now have all the fruit you could ever want in your life. So it is the importance of going your own way and understanding that is where all the fruit is. That's where all the treasure is. And it's not until you do your own thing that you'll have access to that. You'll have access to the rest of the orchard.
Man, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you come up with that or you read that somewhere?
No, I read that somewhere and it's just like, obviously I didn't tell it how they told it, but it's stuck with me a long time. And then I guess a quote.
And I asked you, wait, I didn't even, what is the pronunciation on the first name, bro? You didn't even tell me.
It's Jugan.
Jugan.
Yeah, so like Jugong, but N. Jugan.
Jugan Kido.
Yes, sir.
What is a quote you live your life by?
Carl Jung, I hope I'm saying that correctly. He says, people don't have ideas, ideas have people.
Explain.
So it's this idea that when we are aligning ourselves with other people, we feel that alignment through the ideas that we share. If you and I have conflicting ideas, we both approach reality differently. So when Carl Jung says, people don't have ideas, ideas have people, a question that I like to think of is what idea currently has me? What's driving me? What's pushing me forward? What's holding me back? And addressing that idea exactly where it is.
That's got me thinking, that one. Man, that's pretty deep.
Yes, sir.
Man, Kid, I appreciate you coming out on the Everything Property Podcast, man.
My guy,
I'll
thank you
see you
very
at
much for having
episode
me.
500.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.